that when this case went to the jury, that you believed that O.J. Simpson would be acquitted because of all these holes you've just pointed to after the fact?
What I said, and I've said it publicly, is that I thought the evidence was sufficient to go either way. And I've also said if I were sitting on the jury that I would have acquitted, and I would have acquitted because if somebody brings me a case where one of the key investigators is an acknowledged perjurer and racist, and the case is a circumstantial evidence case, that there's a high probability that is going to cause me to mistrust not only the testimony of that person, but also of the other police officers. Acquittal. An acquittal does not mean that the jury has found anybody innocent. It only shows that the jury has determined that the prosecution has not proved guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Each of those jurors may feel there's a possibility O.J. Simpson did it, or maybe he was involved in some way, but that's not the question under our system.
Really, everybody.
Even though he might have found the glove, albeit he's a racist, you should have not allowed that glove to be admitted because it was found by someone who was a racist. Decision for America, for criminal justice, for race relations, for the way trials are conducted.
I'm very worried about the implications of how the public, especially whites, are reacting to this verdict. And actually, I'm somewhat outraged and very livid about it because you get the impression that especially among whites, there's this notion that the jurors said, well, we're black, O.J.'s black, Johnny Cochran's black, let the brother go free. You know, I mean, and this is just ridiculous. There were terrible holes in the prosecution's case. The investigation was bungled. The prosecution really didn't try a good case. This case could have gone either way.
Often does prosecutors get up in their summation and say, yes, our most important witness is a racist. He shouldn't be on this planet. And I think what the jurors sort of felt was what the defense was arguing in their summation. If you have a bowl of spaghetti and you see a bug crawling in there, you don't want to take the bug out and then continue eating the rest of the spaghetti. You say, get out of here.
Heard a lot of people rejected today the assumption that the jury could only think race. First of all, there was a unanimous decision, a couple of whites there who didn't hold out. But also, apart from the race of the matter and the Furman factor, they were charged with finding evidence beyond doubt. And no one found a knife or knives, no eyewitnesses, and the time frame was troublesome for one man to kill two people with a knife or knives. So to somehow put more focus on the lack of integrity of the jurors, black jurors, it seems to me to be a bit unfair.
Verdict, and what are the implications, you think, for all of us to consider?
Well, I'm probably the last person in the world who should interpret this verdict, since I predicted on Crossfire last night that it would go the other way, and I predicted it quite boldly. So I guess I was very surprised.
Why do you think you were so wrong? What do you think what might have...
Well,
what did you look at and make such a bad judgment about?
Well, I reached the conclusion myself, the same conclusion that most people I know reach, which is that the evidence looks to me to establish beyond a reasonable doubt that O.J. did it. And I was not willing to make what seemed to me the patronizing assumption, if not racist, that these jurors would be unable to see what I see. In
part, in terms of family and in terms of so much of what's happened to put so many young African-American men and
That's
women
real
in the judicial
institutional
system.
racism. And see, what I think Attorney Dr. Crenshaw is saying, which I hope you'll appreciate, is that it does not assume that black people are not capable of determining between racism and race. There's a race factor, there's a sex factor, there's a drug factor, there's a celebrity factor, there's a money. There's a lot of factors in this, but in addition to those factors and the Furman factor was the question of the weapon and the witness and the timeline.
I want to get to Washington, but go ahead.
Circumstantial evidence can be extraordinarily powerful. I mean, there was a great deal of circumstantial evidence in this case, which many people, unfortunately, somewhat divided along racial lines, viewed as extremely powerful evidence. And maybe minorities and whites simply can't see evidence in exactly the same way because we are becoming increasingly polarized.